Arguably the biggest match of the Rugby League World Cup so far. Australia versus New Zealand. What an epic this was. 2 points in it. Longy, I know you're a big fan of the Aussies here, and they just got away with it in this one. What were your thoughts, mate?
Mate, it was always going to be a close game. You've got New Zealand ranked number one, Australia, in my eyes, rightful tournament favourites. I wasn't inspired by Australia's performance though. So look, it's hard to say that when a team, beats sort of the other best team in the World Cup, but watching Australia's attack, it was pretty disjointed to me. And we look at the sort of attacking reel there. There were three tries in that game, and actually, let's start off. I'm just going to go right into those three tries and just talk about them. So, 15th minute, Josh Adokar scores a try. It's a middling sort of bomb there. Rapana was a bit slow to get back. Adokar showed incredible speed and incredible touch to take that. Just a freakish individual effort, but not really an attacking play there. More just some individual brilliance from Adokar. I'll draw attention to the 52nd minute as well. Cam Murray scored that try, just running it straight up the middle. Bit of a brain snap. Brandon Smith, he'd worked very hard all game, but he got caught out there too. Not a try you can rely on being scored beyond the sort of reserve grade level. So that was a really surprising one too. And then the other try was that Holmes try where, again, we had to run it on the last tackle. So Cleary sort of took it into his own hands, threw a cutout ball to Whiten, who showed a bit of toe there to sort of beat his man and get close to the line, and then nearly got tackled and got the offload away to Val Holmes, who scored. So that was pretty ad hoc too. So I guess what I'm getting at is these were all pretty random tries. These weren't structured tries. These weren't plays that were being built to or structures that were being implemented there. They were just kind of dice roll tries. And for Australia, I'd be a bit concerned about the fact that they weren't opening up the Kiwis more in a sort of planned structural way going into next week. What stood out for you in this game, Miles?
Yeah, I agree with you totally in terms of the attack being just super disjointed. The amount of shepherds that I saw where they just had to surrender in tackles was outrageous and not what you expect from a lot of class players in that Australian side. The thing that stood out for me is that the Kiwis actually won the meters and post contact meters battle in this one, and they really got on top early. Offloads were a key part of that as well. Their attacks seemed to be so free flowing at times. And it was beautiful to watch actually in that first half. And they really capitalized on Australia possibly not being all there in the head, maybe not being in the moment as nicely as they'd want to be at this stage of the tournament. I think maybe that's because Australia hadn't been as tested at this point, whereas New Zealand had a pretty tight game against Lebanon, and we talked about that. But yeah, I think what really stood out was these two fullbacks were just phenomenal. Both of them ran for over 300 meters and had over 25 runs each. It's an absolute pleasure to watch Teddy and Manu go about their work. They're absolute titans of the game, and they both play on the same NRL team, which is the scariest thing in the world. And if I'm the Roosters, I'm absolutely chuffed to have both of these guys on the roster. How did you see that fullback, kind of dichotomy playing out? Was it what you expected it to be? Manu resilient as ever, and Teddy just, such a good big game player.
It's kind of eerie seeing the stat lines. He got 320 meters each, pretty much. 8 breaks for Teddy. I think it was 4 tackle breaks, 4 offloads for Manu. So very similar sort of stat lines. Manu, it was involved more in attack, I think, in sort of crucial moments. The thing that I would critique again on Australia's attack is Teddy did a lot of tough work in that game, and he can do it. Tedesco can go out and run 300 tough meters for you, but you're not using him well if he's doing that. Like if Tedesco is just a workhorse for you and he's not getting the ball in, one-on-one sort of isolation situations close to the line, then you're not leveraging him for his skills. Same as Latrell. I thought Latrell had a lot of tough work in that game. Not as big a stat line, I think about 120 meters, but he was trucking the ball out and not getting one-on-one ball against weaker centers on the Kiwi side as well. So going back to that attack, I think a lot of the Aussie outside backs didn't get the opportunity to showcase themselves as much as they really should have.
Yeah, definitely. I thought the Kiwis halves debatably were better than the Australian halves. I know Cleary had over 29 runs as well, and he seemed to really be taking on the line a lot more than say, a Munster, who's, I would say, more known as a runner than Cleary. I mean, Cleary loves to take the line on, but you don't see him taking 29 runs for Penrith on a weekend
But that's the
all the
problem.
time.
That's the problem with
Yeah.
this game plan, right? Like, that's exactly what I'm saying. He's taking the line on and showing and going, and they won the game, so you can't critique him too much. But if your halves are taking that many runs and your strike weapons out wide and not getting enough ball in attacking position, it's a problem. And when he did just throw the ball out to Jack Whiten, for example, and give him a one-on-one try, that was the one try we almost, well, you could say we constructed. And we just need to be doing more of that. We need to be exploiting the fact that our outside backs for Australia are just so transcendently better than anyone else's. And the teams we're playing this deep into the tournament, their edge back rowers are effective in defence. You know, the Kiwi halves, Jerome Hughes and Dylan Brown, are two of the best in defence. That's not where the weakness is. The weakness was looking out wide. You know, Rapana can have a brain snap. Hiku could be exploited for speed. A few of these guys really should have been targeted.
Nelson as well can kind of, he could either be a bit slow to get there as well. I love when Melbourne played him on the edge last year, and he got that chance again. He probably not as effective as you'd like him to be, but
He had a
Nelson,
good stat line. But when you had to look at it afterwards, a lot of tackle breaks, a lot of runs.
I think it's just in the context of them kind of losing the game. It's more you might have wanted him as an impact player through the middle. Whether you could use him as the premier front rower alongside James Fisher-Harris might have been the go, but Leota was also pretty good. I think Leota and Fisher-Harris, they know each other's game really well, so they're a really good 1-2 punch. So I see why Madge went for that. But yeah, I think, to echo your point, not giving Addo-Carr space with the ball or Latrell space with the ball, they're matched up against Hiku. Debatably, his best years are behind him at this point, but he was still fantastic for the Cowboys this year, and that's why he got selected. But he missed 6 tackles and made 3 errors along the way in this game. And I love him. He's a good player at club level, but against Latrell Mitchell, you're going to get found out. Anyone is going to get found out against Latrell. But I just think that they didn't exploit that enough, and that's I guess to kind of hammer down what you were trying to say there. It's just they really didn't give the strike weapons enough space with the ball.
Yeah, nowhere near enough. And going back to your point about the forwards, the Kiwis played a game plan with their forwards, and arguably through the middle third were the more effective team. So again, just sort of thinking about the game, and it was pretty early watching it, so I had to give it a rewatch to really sort of wake up and see everything. But Jake Trbojevic and Regan Campbell-Gillard, two guys I really enjoy in Clubland. I think it was 72 meters and 48 meters for the two of them through the middle. So it's not just a stat game, and those guys do a lot of work in defense, but the middle forwards for the Kiwis just absolutely bashed them. And I saw Tino come on really late in this game as well. I think it was about the 55th minute that Tino came on. I thought that was too late. And then when he came on, he was absolutely destroyed on his first run, second run, third run. He was kind of hopping around a bit and trying to find gaps. Probably should have just tucked it under and gone straight. And that reluctance to play physical from a lot of these middle forwards for Australia, when you go to Samoa next week, could lose you the game, right?
Yeah, definitely. Jake Trbojevic, though, it's no secret, he does that kind of thing at club level. I think this year he averaged 50 meters a game at club level. So he's not a big meter eater. And yes, he does a lot of work in defense. So I think he maybe thinks that's an excuse to not run the ball as much as he probably should. But sometimes I think Jake also sees himself as a 5'8". Sometimes he loves to get the ball in hand and move it on, and that's perfectly great when you've got Tom Trbojevic out the back of you. And with Australia, same thing. He's got Teddy out the back there, but yeah, it doesn't exactly get involved in the attack as much, and is not a big post contact meters guy.
The problem in this team, though, like if we're going to that sort of role for him in terms of being a ball player, we've got Isaiah Yeo. Isaiah Yeo is the best in the game to do it. And Isaiah Yeo had an exceptional game, by the way, statistically and passing the eye test as well. He was really good. But the props just need to play like props. And is Ruben Cotter hurt right now, or it's not selected?
He was 18th man. No, Cherry Evans was 18th man. No, he's not really part of the game plan at the moment, I don't think.
First pick,
Nanai, which I thought is interesting.
Cotter would be my first picked prop. in this team.
Yeah,
Like maybe Tino second. Like I like Regan, I like Jake, but Cotter brings the heat like none of these other props do, and he wouldn't have the problem that we talked about here.
yeah, they kind of skated by without any props doing anything, and I think that'll like kind of lead me to believe that they'll pick a very similar team moving forward as well. So just because they won, and you don't change a winning formula normally, and especially at that level, when they've proved it on the world stage. I think the other thing I'd like to kind of harp on is the hookers in this game were relatively non-existent. I think Hunt had an early flourish, but then kind of faded into the ether, as well as Harry Grant when he came on. I barely noticed that he was on the field, and not usually. When Harry Grant comes on, he's normally straight into the action and making a big run down the middle. But I think the big thing, and it's kind of where New Zealand lost this game a little bit, they gave way too many minutes to Brandon Smith. He played 60 straight minutes, and that was just too much for him. It was he actually, and I know a lot of people would be harping on him at the end of this game, and a lot of people say, "Oh, it's because of Brandon Smith we lost the game." No, they had like 25 minutes after that, and prior to Murray running over the top of him again, he made a try-saving tackle on Isaiah Yeo, like before that. So I understand, and he got up pretty banged up from that, and then Murray ran at him again. You can understand why he wasn't particularly ready for it, or I sympathise with him in that moment, but yeah, he just couldn't really get it going, especially at the later stages of his time out there.
Yeah, let's hit that point. It's completely unfair to blame one player in any game for any result, really. Even if the player has an egregious performance, it's a whole team game. It's bullshit to single out one guy and so put it on them. Brandon Smith has been exceptional for the Kiwis for this tournament. The strength and weaknesses of Brandon Smith there in that role is that he plays 100 miles an hour every second that he's on the field. That's a weakness if you're trying to play 60 minutes straight. So that we talked about that in the preview for the Kiwis, that they needed to nail down their hooker rotations, especially against a team like Australia, and they kind of botched it in this one. I
Yeah,
think.
Foran doesn't really offer anything at hooker too. Like he's barely played there in any of the teams that he's been a part of in the
But if he's going to be
NRL.
on the bench, he's got to come on, give Brandon Smith a rest. That's his function, right? Hold down the fort for 20 minutes in the middle of the game, give Brandon Smith two 30-minute runs on the other edges. They're not needing a lot of subs for their forwards. Tarpanay plays big minutes, all the middle guys, edges. That would have been fine. I don't know why they didn't do that. Do you think if the Kiwis had won this game, do you think they would be firm favourites against Samoa next week? Or do you think, based on what you've seen, Samoa would probably knock them off?
Oh, hard to go against my Samoan boys, but no, I definitely think that New Zealand would be favourites in this game. I think they would have been favourites against England as well. So that's how much I think of this New Zealand side. They gave it a fair crack, and they showed a lot in this tournament. A lot of young talent that they've got on that team as well, with the likes of Dylan Brown and Manu really emerging as a premier fullback. Really, you could call him at this stage a fullback masquerading as centre is what I'd call him. Yeah, they showed enough for me to say that they'd be favourites easily against either team that came out of the other game.
Yeah, no, I agree. They were good. They just lacked a bit of that finish, and I think a lot of the teams have lacked that chemistry. The last comment I'm going to offer on New Zealand before I'll let you finish things up is Dylan Brown played a game that I haven't seen him play really ever. Like, he took control of the kicking game. He put Australia under a mountain of pressure, especially early in this game, and he played like a genuine seven, which I'm a big Parramatta fan. I love Dylan Brown, but every game that Dylan Brown's taken over, it's been with his feet. It's been running the ball, or it's been, throwing the nice sort of cutout pass to the wing, or potentially a grubber, but he hasn't been that sort of controlled master of the game and master of flow like he was last night. Or the night before. So that was really impressive to me. And if he can take that back to Parramatta, watch out. He had a near Dally M season this year. If he's got another gear to go through, damn.
Yeah, he was absolutely silky. It showed the class beyond his years, I think, in that one. And unfortunately, didn't get him over the line, and that's what counts. But Australia go through onto the final to face Samoa. just look out. We're about to do the Samoa versus England game, reviewing that one up next. So stay tuned for that.